Good evening. It is Tuesday, September the 27th, about 6:45 p.m. This is Shay Gibson with Wind Alert, bringing you a tropics update. So we're watching Invest 97L make its way across the tropical Atlantic towards the Windward Islands. The wave itself is a broad area of rotation. The hurricane hunters did go out today to investigate the system, and what they did not find was a well-defined center of circulation, which is part of the criteria for upgrading to a tropical depression or a tropical storm. However, that may change tonight, so we could see as early as tonight, if not maybe tomorrow, we could see Tropical Storm Matthew as this wave continues to head to the west to west-northwest at about 15 to 20 miles per hour. We do expect that these islands will see deteriorating conditions over the next 12 to 24 hours, so all Caribbean island interests should be monitoring this system because as it does enter the Caribbean Sea, it does have potential to strengthen. Here's the National Hurricane Center giving us a high probability with 90% chance in the next 48 hours and 90% chance in the next 5 days. The cone of uncertainty takes us into the Caribbean Sea, and beyond that, they're just not certain yet. We're looking at a setup that may drive the system to the north. Things are starting to become a little bit clearer as we're watching an upper trough develop over the Gulf right now. So here's the latest tracks, and we see some of these models are actually starting to trend with this northerly turn. But we do see that how far out it is at 96 hours, 72 to 96 hours, which is pretty far out. We're just not entirely certain yet, and we're going to have to watch this day to day to see what happens. Right now in the Western Atlantic, if we look at the pattern overall, let me get rid of the sea surface temperature so we can see what's going on. We see this air diving down here and then lifting back up. And this is an upper trough in association with an upper low diving down from the Ohio Valley and down towards the Tennessee Valley right now over continental United States. This air is expected to continue to do this upper trough digging down into the Gulf and down into the Western Caribbean, and this pattern is expected to stick for several days, in which case this system may make it over into this area and get pulled to the north by this upper trough. So that's kind of what the trend is. It looks like for right now the high pressure in the Atlantic is driving the system from east to west into the Caribbean Sea, and that's its steering pattern. But as it gets over into the Western Caribbean, this is going to be the area to watch to see if the storm does hook right and head north across Cuba or even earlier at Dominican Republic. We're just not very certain yet, but that seems to be the trend right now for some of the models. Let's take a look at the heat potential. This map right here shows the heat potential over the water, and what it means is a lot of times when you have warm water, sometimes it just sits at the surface and you get a storm that blows over it and it circulates the water, and then you get the cool water upwelling from underneath, and then there's really not much left. But it looks like the heat potential is a little bit deeper than that according to this map right here. A lot of times if you look at the water surface, this is looking at it from a side angle, we look at pelagic zones for water, and right here at the top surface down to about 650 feet is the epipelagic layer. Below that is the mesopelagic layer, which goes down to about 3,300 feet. But if we have a lot of warm water bottled up in this layer right here, even a storm passing over it could not stir it up and get the cool water from underneath in the mesopelagic layer up to the top. So a lot of times you end up having this high potential. There hasn't been any storms in months to go through this area to stir this water up, so the warm water layer is very deep, and so there's additional fuel for the system to develop in this area. So that's what makes it a little bit of a concern once it enters into the Western Caribbean. Central to Western Caribbean is watching to see if the system slows down in that area and then has time to develop or intensify into possibly even a hurricane. So let's look at the model guidance for the GFS. And we see right now, we see that upper low diving down. You can see it entering down into the Tennessee Valley up here to the north. This is what I'm talking about. This is what's driving that trough down across the Gulf and into the Western Caribbean. And if we look at where the system is coming in into the focus right here, just south of Dominican Republic, this should be affected. GFS has been very persistent on this lifting to the north as a result of that trough, and if we see right here it slows down in time and then it gets that lift to the north and cuts across Cuba, and beyond that we're really getting into a very far out timeline. It's not going to be exact, so we don't really want to jump to conclusions on where the system may go. If it does take a northerly turn, we're going to have to wait a couple more days to find out what kind of guidance that will give for the GFS. Here's the Euro model, and this Euro model actually is an agreement as well. It actually brings the system a little further south over the northern South American coast. So if you're in Venezuela or even the northern peninsula of Colombia, you should be watching that. Areas like Curacao and some of these islands need to really be watching the system. If it's a tropical storm, you will encounter tropical storm force winds and waves and some messy conditions in that area. But the Euro is also in agreement with this upper low dropping down over the Tennessee Valley. This is by Friday. and then that troughing, like I was talking about earlier, lifting the system up to the north as well. So when the Euro and the GFS are in agreement with this, it's really something to monitor closely and to have a little bit of concern of, because then some of these islands are going to be affected by this storm. So that's getting a little far out at 192 hours as it sits over Cuba. So really the area of focus needs to be in the Caribbean once the system crosses over the Lesser Antilles and goes just south of the Greater Antilles and is in this area. Then we can focus on where the track is going to go from there. But that seems to be the trend for right now. If we look at the upper winds for the GFS, we can get a better idea of that upper low. We can see it right here coming down from the Great Lakes and then coming down into the Tennessee Valley. And you can really get a better idea of that trough, that air diving down. We have a ridge right here that is driving air down into the Gulf, and then it's lifting, it's scooping down into the Western Caribbean and back up again. So that gives a better idea of what's going on in continental United States that could have some serious effects on this storm, or some influential effects on its lifting to the north. So if we look at the intensity models, intensities pretty much trend on an upwards build. If it does end up going over some land, or even close over the northern coast of South America, it could limit some capability of it actually developing faster. Or if it ends up going north over Cuba, some of the mountainous areas and mountainous zones there also could weaken it somewhat. So we're just not sure yet. Things are really uncertain as far as when we get past like 96 to 120 hours. So we just don't know yet. It's really kind of a situation where we have to monitor the system and wait and see what happens once it gets into the Caribbean Sea, and monitor it from there. But for right now, the trend is that there is a lifting mechanism in place that will lift this storm to the north. But where it goes from there, we just don't know. But until next time, I'm going to go ahead and sign off on this tropical update, and we'll continue to watch. I'll try to get on tomorrow and do another one. And until then, thanks for watching. Take care.